This video is in kinda two, kinda three parts. It is the gender and sexuality talk, which is kind of a hot button topic, especially if you hang out on Tumblr. But I'm going to spend the first part of it talking about, education, that kind of thing. And then the second part's gonna be my story. That's split into two parts kind of because half of it's a pre-recorded thing that I did for a documentary a couple weeks ago. So that's going to be recorded in 2 bits also. Just because I already have half it recorded, I see no point in re-recording it. Okay, so, started. First of all, like I said, it's pretty much a hot button topic right now. It's a big deal on Tumblr. And that's just because, dear Lord. Sorry, I'm looking up the whole acronym and it's long. Yeah, we're not gonna go there for now. We're just gonna stay away. There's a lot of people who are out on Tumblr. I know I'm out on Tumblr, not to my family. Well, I'm half out on Tumblr, and okay, I'm all out on Tumblr and half out with my family. I'll get to that later. So, let's start some preconceived notions. Gender versus sex. Let's start with that. Sex is biological. It's what's between your legs. Pretty straightforward. Gender, that's whether you're a boy or a girl. I've seen it in terms of what's between your ears, how you identify. That's what changes. Some people are so strongly disidentified with between their sex and their gender that they get sex change surgery, which is awesome for them. It's far be it from me to tell anyone how to live their life. You do you. It's pretty awesome. So there are people who don't identify with. There's people who are cis, people who aren't cis. That's a much wider term. I'll get to it in a minute. Cis, that's CIS, is people who identify with their sex, their biology. That's most of the population. Most of the population are cis. You got a vagina, you identify as a girl, that kind of thing. Same thing, you got a penis, you identify as a boy, all of that. Pretty straightforward. Like I said, that's most of the people in the population. Then there's it's not just cis and trans, where you're born a boy, but you are a girl, or vice versa. There's also the wider umbrella of genderqueer, where you don't really identify as either one. That's a spectrum. You can identify as demigirl, demiguy. I'll get more into that later. That falls more under the personal bit of stuff. I'll explain a lot more of that when we get there. So that's the basics of gender. And a really, really big thing with gender that gets abused a lot is pronouns and names. Ask people the pronouns if you're really just the pronouns. Some people prefer feminine pronouns that they might look like a guy. Vice versa. Some people prefer the pronouns that they look like. Some people prefer neutral pronouns. They and them is actually apparently it's actually grammatically correct to use as a singular. So if people say they prefer neutral pronouns, use neutral pronouns, for God's sake. Just use the right pronouns. It's important, okay? There's also sexuality. This is kind of getting more news coverage with gay rights, especially same-sex marriage being legalized as of a couple months ago. But it's not, once again, just like the cis to trans thing, it's not just straight to gay. There's a spectrum. I think it's the Kinsey scale has stuff like this, with how much you identify hetero, homo. That's an interesting test. The big sexual orientations tend to be heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, pansexual, and asexual. Yes, there's more than just that. There's, like I said, spectrum, but those are the big ones. Heterosexual, once again, is the majority of the population. You prefer the opposite gender. Homosexual, you prefer the same gender. Bisexual is when you're attracted to both genders. Pansexual gets confused with bi a lot, because people who don't understand there's more than two genders. Once again, it's that cis to trans spectrum. So pansexual attracted to all genders, basically attracted to people regardless. Doesn't matter to you what their gender is. Then there's also asexual, which is you're not attracted to anybody, regardless of anything. I can talk mostly on asexuality, but I'll do my best with the other ones. Also, there's a romantic spectrum. Other people don't think of this because most people identify as the same romantic orientation as they are sexual, so they don't even know it exists. It's really it's really a thing within the asexual community. Because just because you don't feel sexual attraction doesn't mean that you don't feel romantic attraction. It's the exact same spectrum, the exact same prefixes. It's just with what you're romantically attracted to instead of sexually. That's so that's that. Yeah. There's a lot more. I'm really not qualified to explain it. I just kind of talking from previous knowledge here. I didn't do much more research. Look into it. It's really interesting stuff, and it affects a lot of people. More people than people realize. Yeah, it's kind of a big issue, especially with things like heteronormativity, which is where you assume that everyone's heterosexual, and stuff like that, and oppression and harassment and all of that, people who aren't straight or who aren't cis. So yeah, I really can't talk much more about it, but do your research, and here's part 2. There's this sort of asexual cliche that you feel broken before you realize you're ace. The thing is, though, at least for me, it's so true. Our world today is so over-sexualized. They use sex to sell pretty much everything. And when someone doesn't feel that normal sexual attraction, well, there's something wrong with them. I didn't come across the term asexual until my junior year in high school. But as soon as I did, it just clicked. That was it. That explained all these feelings, my perception of the world that I hadn't been able to understand myself, much less explain or put a label to. It wasn't a new feeling. I can remember even as far back as elementary school, when the other girls I hung out with would be giggling over so-and-so, and I just didn't get it. Yeah, sure, I could understand that someone was good-looking, maybe, but I never understood crushes or huddling around giggling over boys. As we got older, into sex ed, such as it was, and all that goes with it, I had different reactions from the rest of my class. It was interesting from a purely scientific standpoint. I love biology and anthropology, both of which can be directly linked to sex ed, but I never had the urge to giggle over terms or covertly check out the guys in the class. When it came to discussions on things like safe sex and all of that, I basically zoned out. I wasn't planning on sleeping with anybody, ever, so why bother paying attention when I could be working on a story or something like that? So, for me, figuring out that I was ace, that was easy. It was trying to determine my romantic orientation that was a different matter altogether. The only thing that I knew for sure was that I was not heteroromantic. It took me a year in a committed relationship to figure out that I felt no different towards my then boyfriend than I did towards, say, my best friend. That led me to look into the possibility of being aromantic. And that fit. It felt right, just as much as being asexual did. My family knows that I'm ace and aro, although I think they refuse to accept it. My parents keep saying, when you get married, ... not realizing that I have no interest in being in that type of committed romantic relationship, or any romantic relationship, to be honest. Interestingly enough, I never wanted to get married, even when I was really little. I've also been told that I just haven't found the right guy yet, and basically gave up explaining that I'm not going to find anybody. I'm not looking. I'm not interested. I don't want a partner. But, for the most part, being asexually romantic hasn't really affected anything for me. I've known for almost 2 years, and it's not like I feel like I'm missing out on anything, because I'm not. I'm just not looking for a romantic or sexual partner, and it's just part of who I am, and it fits. Welcome to part 2 of part 2, I guess. What I talked about was, my asexuality and my aromanticism, but now I'm going to talk about my thing with gender. So, genderqueer is a blanket term. I discussed that in the first bit of the video, but I also said that there's also demigirl, demiguy, and I'd get more into that later. So, because it's personal for me. So, hi. Because you're totally not already like several minutes into this video. I'm demigirl, which basically means that I identify as mostly, but not wholly, female. Biologically, yes, I'm female. Feminine name, feminine pronouns. I prefer feminine pronouns. Chris is a nickname, so my actual name is feminine, and so then, all that. For feminine pronouns. But there are days where I really just don't feel like a girl. It's never that I wanted to be a guy, it's just that I don't wholly identify as female. So I was doing some research, and the term for that is demigirl. The demis are a little weird, at least to me. I mean, and I'm part of that. I don't know. But, yeah. So, that's that, really. Like I said earlier, you have to do the research. I really can't explain it outside of the terms of my own experience. And I didn't do much of a good job of that either. But, these terms are sort of new to me because, like, I've known that I don't really identify as all female, but I never really knew how to label that. And yes, like my friend said, labels are for other people, not for you, but it's nice to know. So, yeah, that's that. So that's me. That's the gender sexuality thing. I did a terrible job explaining it, but there you go. Honestly, said I haven't done much research. The only thing that I can really help you with research on is asexuality, and that's because I am ace. AVEN's a really good thing to look at. It's the Asexuality Visibility and Education Network. I'll link to that down below, and if I remember, I will also link to some other things. I'll do some research while this is uploading, and I'll link to some other sites to get a handle on all of this stuff. So, yeah, look into it. Accept people for who they are, please. That's kind of, big deal. And all of that. And have a great day. I don't know. Night. Or whatever it is. It's day here. I'm sorry. So yeah, research, all of that.